Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. This is Toyin Umesiri. I see Amit. Good morning, good afternoon, Amit. Where are you joining us from? So if you're live, do drop a comment. Just mention your country or state or wherever you're joining us from, and I want this to be as interactive as possible. So this week's topic is around the path to wealth creation and misconceptions. There's a lot of those going around. So this topic is one of those things when you say wealth creation, everybody wants it, but do we all know how to get it? I think that's the question of today. Just laying it out in terms of the years of research and work and that I've put in and the training I do and my master classes, just bringing a few of that knowledge base on my weekly live show. So that's the goal for today. Again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Toyin Umesiri. I also put right there contact information because sometimes people wonder how best to reach me, particularly because I show up in different dimensions. So sometimes I talk about Trade with Africa Summit, sometimes it's Nazaru, sometimes it's the Trade Network, sometimes I talk about my skincare and beauty line, sometimes it's product and services, sometimes it's my master classes. I know I show up in different dimensions. In fact, last week, one of the conversations I had was I'm bringing someone on board to help me in terms of, and I've also done some rebranding for my personal brand because I am the woman behind a lot of things. And I hope I'm not confusing so many people because people now wonder, I think, like, okay, how do we engage with Toyi? Like, what's Toyi about? Like, what can she do for us? Like, what can she do for our business? So I recognize that because of the volume of work, or should I say the body of work in the academia, that's one of the things they talk about in terms of your body of work. So in terms of the body of work that I have, it's a lot of it's quite substantial, and I feel like people may not realize the best way to intersect or work with me in terms of the various value I bring. So I'm streamlining that, should I say, the way I communicate that, because let me just share a little bit. One of the reasons that there's a lot that I do and the various platforms that I've created is because this is such an underserved space. And what I now do is based on whoever comes to me, because I also recognize that different people want different things. Like the last 2 weeks, I've been laying this foundation of explaining to people the different categories of people that I serve and that come on my platforms, right? You know, again, I've also told people if you have a better way of explaining this, please let me know. So I say the penthouse people, really people at the leading front of global transformation, policy in business and in politics, right? I also say the people living on the mid floor and then our ground floor people, different categories of people require different support as we talk about supply chain, as we talk about trade, as we talk about investment. I recognize that, but that's also something I teach people to understand the stakeholder, to do a complete stakeholder assessment of who they're engaging with, who they're trying to serve. And also I translate that also into my business development classes because a lot of the people in my community, sometimes I realize that they don't have the skill set. They talk about what they want to do, right? Oh, I want to do export. Oh, I want to do import. Oh, I'm looking for buyer. Oh, I get it. But when I take a closer look and I look at should I say, open the hood of their car, right? Or the trunk in some parts, I know in Europe it's like trunk, it's wood, whatever. I open that layer and I look and I'm going, no, you can't pull this thing off. You don't have the capacity, you don't have the skills, you don't have the weight to pull what it is. So I found myself also coaching people and working with people through that entire process to kind of shore up their foundation, right? If you want to go in this direction, you really have to show that. Anyway, I can go on and on, but I'm trying to also keep today's conversation to a short, to see how far I'm looking at time. I don't want to talk on and on. I just want to focus on today's topic and see how soon I can wrap that up. So, wealth creation. In the context of wealth creation, I'm going to look at it in two dimensions. Okay, one is individuals, individuals pursuing wealth, right? in terms of building businesses or investing and all of that, trying to grow revenue and all of that. So that's one dimension. The other dimension that is also relevant to my platforms and the work I do is more what I'll call national wealth, right? Like there are a lot of policy leaders scratching their head right now in terms of, but even in the US, with the context of COVID-19, right? People talking about economic recovery. There's also, devastation as regards economic, the impact of COVID-19. So even before COVID, that's always been a conversation, right? Where you think about regions of the world, what drives wealth creation for nations. So again, individual, you and I, what do we have to do to get on this path? There's also the nations, leaders, policy leaders, with the AFCFTA, for example, African Continental Free Trade Agreement, with AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity Act, that's the US Africa free trade. You see all this free trade, North America, all of those things going on. It's because policymakers, policy leaders are trying to put their nations on the path of substantial wealth creation. Think about China, right? Look at where they are today. It's because they put together policies, projects, all of this capacity building. They were deliberate. Like okay, so number one, wealth creation is not something you stumble into. Okay, let me just start putting that out there, right? Wealth creation as individuals or as from a national agenda standpoint, it's never something you stumble. It doesn't just happen, you know. It's deliberate actions and deliberate activities that you have to undergo and tweaks, and that's where economics come in, and all of that, policies and capacity building. It's like it's this scientific experiment that you have to undergo to see what clicks. You have to see what's going to spark the fire. And when you find it, I know I'm being over dramatic right now, but hey, it's serious topic, but let's see how we can lighten it and bring some fun to it as well. So it's this scientific experiments. And I try to tell people you need the most brilliant minds to focus on that. When you think about the biggest brands in the world, I tell, this is one of the things I talk to small businesses on. Like they hire the most brilliant people, PhD, human sciences, human behavioral sciences. Like, you go to all the stores and you're swiping and you're buying and they're providing services and value to you and you're paying them back. You may not realize this, but they employ the most brilliant people. So again, it's not something you stumble upon. It's a scientific scientific experiment. My first degree is mathematics. Okay, people don't know that. I don't talk about that enough. So when I talk about trends, and the reason I'm in this space where I left what I was doing to focus on this space is because trends is my thing. I know numbers. I know statistics. When you look at the numbers and you know where the world is going. For example, in my previous work, 5, 6 years ago, we already knew we were already talking about digital disruption. We already knew the direction the world was going, right? That there are people now mapping out the future of the world. So if you are a business leader or a government official and you're not really plugging into those type of knowledge base, guess what? You're always going to be reacting. You're always going to be playing catch up. But leaders of the world, be it in business and politics, that pay attention to trends, to projections, and understand how they can pull those things in to their business and now actually not really focus 100% on it, but at least 10, 20% of whatever you're doing, your strategy, you should be focused on the direction of the world. But these are things you cannot control, right? You're not going to control whether China becomes XYZ, but you need to know, right? You need to know, you need to be aware. You're not going to be able to control whatever Russia is doing or what's happening in India with COVID and all of those things. But guess what? That's impacting your business, right? If you have businesses and staff and employees in India, and we really send our prayers out there, you have to be involved. Like where we're, people talk about global village, and then with COVID-19, people are turning inwards, but we're so interconnected. Look at the way COVID has spread around the world. We are still so interconnected that you cannot put your head in the sand, like what they talk about, the ostrich, and pretend nothing is happening out there. That's what I mean. Wealth creation is also impacted by policy, right? US, for example, this is where I sit. For so long, it's almost been very invisible to the naked eye of common people outside of DC, of the role policy implementation play in advancing wealth, in creating an environment where individuals can create wealth, sustain wealth, pay their taxes, do all of those things. But with COVID-19, I hope people now pay attention, a closer attention to it, because guess what? You can sleep tonight and then wake up tomorrow, and maybe you're in the restaurant business and realize that policy had to be put in place for safety reasons or health reasons. And yes, it's policy, but guess what? It just impacted your livelihood. Regions around the world have been facing that dilemma for so long, right? For so long, they've been facing that dilemma of not having regions or policies that really support advancement of the private sector. So, wealth creation is not something you stumble into. The other thing is it's not automatic. It doesn't just happen. I call it's a scientific experiment, given that you have to apply science to it in terms of human behavior. In my business development classes, I actually take clients through what I call the value proposition, and understanding your customer profile, like who are you serving? What are their aspirations? What are their pain points? What's your value? What's the value proposition of your business? Like, these are things that behind the scenes, this is the work that has to happen that helps your business click and help it deliver on its promise to its customer seamlessly and all of that. So those are some of the reasons I do that, because I find people just say, "Oh, I have an idea. I want to do ABC," but they may not have done the due diligence of understanding, is this a viable um, proposition? Is the world ready for it? Right? In my case, for example, just case in point, I like to joke privately. Now I'm doing it publicly that it feels like I'm creating a new industry that doesn't exist, meaning mainstream the idea of the economic commercial engagement when it regards the region of the world that has not been put in that light like ever. Right? People talk about charity, a region of the world that has been synonymous with help Africa. Oh, finish your food. Somebody in Africa is going hungry, right? That's the common. But here comes me to saying, hey, time out. 1 billion people cannot all be at war, cannot all be hungry. You've only been sold, um, one side of the story or one side of the coin. You've only been the story of one side of the coin has already only been shared with you, and we have business leaders, policymakers making decisions based on that knowledge base of, oh, let's help Africa. Oh, let's build. Well, guess what? There's another side of the coin, which is the focus of the work that I do, that is smack face in business, right? Commerce, export, import, transaction, insurance, retail, technology innovation, the use of blockchain, right? People talk about blockchain. Guess what? Regions on the continent, they've surpassed the rest of the world in fintech innovation and all of that. But guess what? The world still wants to believe what it wants to believe about this region. So anyway, so when it comes to wealth creation, it's not automatic, right? It's not just I want to do this, so it happened. No, again, it's a scientific experiment according to my understanding. Like, I just go, oh, people don't really understand. Like, everybody wants it, but they're not ready to put in the work and all of that. The other thing I also wanted to call out is this whole idea of supply chain. People talk about supply chain, but guess what? They forget the whole point of chain, the word chain. What does that mean? It means linkages, right? In order to move products from point A to point B or point A to Z, it actually has to go through a chain of, should I say, handshakes between pillars and, should I say, industry pillars. So farm, agriculture, okay, transportation industry, right? You want to move the product from farm to the shelf. Guess what? There's agriculture, there's transportation, there's logistics, there's warehousing, there's packaging, there's sales, there's marketing, there's after sales support, there's branding, and all of that. It's a chain. And what I found particularly is that there are regions of the world where the chain there's the chain is all over. Like, it's like there's no linkage. And that's where the work that I've done and the platforms I've built to unify is trying to create new links, new supply chain links that people can now connect to achieve their goals, their wealth creation goals, be it distribution of products, globally, regionally, and all of that. So I'm just summarizing the essence of my work because a lot of times people don't understand the strategy behind, how I show up in terms of the various platforms that I've built, the various services and training and coaching that I deliver. Many people I recognize don't understand the why. Okay. The why is that a region such as Africa is largely disconnected in terms of link. The links are like floating in the air. And part of the work I do is now bringing all the stakeholders together, policymakers to say, hey, the policy cannot just be in vacuum. You cannot be creating policy that doesn't advance your private sector or only advance, external players, external interests without really looking internal to within your region in terms of how they want to trade or, supply chain logistics and all of that. In fact, you know, when you have bound border issues and all of that, the truth is that you cannot compete or you cannot engage in international trade or, because now let me connect international trade to wealth creation. I come from that industry, and my conclusion is that international trade drives wealth distribution. Okay. That's my conclusion. Is that people and regions of the world that participate in international trade at scale, they are more wealthy based on my research, years of work. And this research, it ranges from India to Vietnam to Chile to US, where we are, to looking at Asia, to engaging with people on ground, to asking them, historically, what did they do? What have they done? What policy? What did they have to shift that allowed them to go from where they used to be to where they are today and where they've set themselves to go? So that's my conclusion is international trade is a gateway to wealth creation for regions of the world. Now, within that context, you have individuals, like what can individuals do to participate, right? So it's either you're in or you're out, like that's it. But I found out that also a lot of people are onlookers. Majority of the people around this dialogue, again, based on my research, they're not in the arena. They're not fighting the battle. They're just reporting on it. They're checking the score and reporting on it, or they're being entertained by the discourse or the conversation, or primarily they're just reporting and they're just onlookers, or there are also people that are not even in the arena. They could care less about this conversation that I'm having today. So those are some of the things that now govern the work that I do. So path to wealth creation is about value creation. What value are you bringing into the marketplace? And how are you connecting that value to a group of people that really do need that value? And then it's this exchange. Trade is all about buying and selling. Long time we used to talk about barter, exchange. Today it's like, okay, let's just exchange monetary. That's our money. Every time I talk, I just want people to know it's coming from depth of knowledge. I could literally talk about certain things like where did money come from, right? Like monetary policies. I actually have a book that's all about money, like the history of money and all of that. I also have another book that is it's quite a chunky book that's the history of Silk Roads, right? How routes of trade were created in the world and all of those things. So anytime I say something or open my mouth, just know that, even though I'm trying to simplify this conversation and bring it home in a very digestible way, you know, it's like, the person I was engaging with last week around my brand and all of those things. One of the things we kind of concluded in is that I'm like Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins that have all kinds of stuff in their bag. That's me, like, you know, and that's why I have to be careful what I dig and bring out of my bag. I'm like, what do you want today? This bag is loaded. So it's studying money, monetary terms, all those central banks and reserves and all of those things, just language, right? Because when I started my journey, I remember engaging with a leader, and it was like, "What's the GDP of this? What's the?" I was like, "Okay." So that's one of the reasons why all of those terms are important, because the people I engage with behind the scenes, these are the things they care about, right? If I say invest, right, why? Right? So we have to speak about it in terms of shared value, all of those things. Like, we have to get the lingo right. So anyway, anytime I open my mouth, I'm almost having to apologize. No, I'm not going to apologize for how incredibly smart I am, but I'm going to apologize in terms of it may go over in a way that's maybe too much. But so rein me in if I'm sharing too much. But anyway, money, how did money emerge? Coming from barter, trade and barter, thinking about silk roads. One of the things I say is that development and infrastructure development goes behind trade routes. A lot of times I see people doing it in reverse. Oh, we're building this road. Where does this road lead to? A road to nowhere, a bridge to nowhere. Usually, you're supposed to study routes of trade, right? Within your country, you're supposed to study, okay, where's the concentration of people? And you're supposed to organize private sector activities. Like, for example, in China, you have concentration of, say, textile manufacturers. The reason is because when ships come in, bringing raw materials, right? It's easier to distribute. If you know this region is known for textile, it's a lot easier from a transportation logistics standpoint to just take the raw materials to that concentration space versus, hey, there's this manufacturer here, it increases the cost of distribution. So those are some of the things that, at the end of the day, from a strategic standpoint, we try to help people map out, like infrastructure development, road network, supply chain is not the first thing that develops. In fact, when you think about railroad, hair transportation, for example, is the last thing to develop when you think about transportation. Why? Because when you start increasing transaction, that's when speed to delivery comes in. At that point is when you need hair. But it usually goes like railroad, all those things develop first through routes of it. So I see some comments dropping. Let me read those and see if I need to react immediately to it. So again, drop your location and whatever questions you have. Albert says, Toyin, I'm reading it out. One of the key topics that perhaps your platform should begin to address is corruption, as in corruption of public figures and policymakers. When that is addressed, wealth creative can take effect. Okay, there are two things there. I agree with one, I don't agree with the other. Okay, this is where again, we have to be careful what we've been made to believe. The question I would hope people are asking is, what drives corruption? What drives corruption? If you can answer that question, then you solve that equation. Now, people just talking about it does nothing. Just labeling a region. In fact, let me say this. A lot of the people that talk about corruption are actually the ones driving and increasing through the way they engage. Their action is actually what's increasing corruption. Now, again, that's like a big ball of onion that I would almost have to write a book on that. So I can't really go into it. So I would just encourage you, don't believe everything you say. Ask this question instead. What is corruption? When does it happen? What makes it prevalent? What transactions even drives it? Like the money they're moving that we're talking about, where did that money come from? Okay, the money. Okay, let me just share one slide from one of my classes. There's a slide in my trade and investment facilitation class, masterclass. Like this class, if you want to be engaged, that's the first class everybody has to take. Because I realized that people are talking, but they're raising topics that doesn't um, connect. So I had to develop this 3-hour class that I've delivered also to government and private sector, just trying to get people, let's all be on the same page, right? Let's understand what we mean by foreign aid, foreign trade. Let's understand how money flows, you know. So one of those slides, which your question, right? Let me just pick how I'm addressing it. One of the slides, I created like two funnels, funnel A, funnel B. Okay, just go with me again. When you ask me this kind of questions, nothing is ever as it seems. We've been made to believe everything is one. You can use one statement and explain something that is incredibly complex. That's something I encourage people to stop. Corruption is one word that means what? I need everybody now to be more curious. It's that word has been used to label regions around the world, but we need to do more due diligence to unravel, okay, what's going on behind that. And that's just what I encourage people. So one of my classes, I actually explain two funnels of national wealth, regions that have a lot of national wealth and individual wealth, and I really explain what that's how that money flows and the differences and what is likely to happen on one path versus the other. So I encourage you to take that class. Maybe after this session, I can put that link out there. But my way of answering that is it's not an easy topic to unravel. I encourage you to ask more questions versus making conclusions, which we've all been fed to arrive at those conclusions, which I refuse to do that. So I don't know if that's helped you, but I want to, a lot of people on my platform, it's all about immersing them in a new way of thinking, in a new way of understanding the world. Otherwise, we're going to be repeating the same thing over and over and over again. There's this, all this one word statements, that people used to label, right? What does that do? It's not moving people forward, right? Versus let's spend more time to understand what that means, what is driving it. And if you don't understand what is driving, you cannot put a stop to it. The second thing of when this is addressed, well creative can take effect. I don't agree, because wealth creation is more scientific than just stopping somebody from stealing money, right? Again, that's why I'm very careful. I'm very careful when people make deductions by two things that are not. Again, I'm a first degree mathematician. So when you think about cause and effect, it's too simple. It's too simple. It doesn't work that way. Even if I give you money now and I say create wealth with this, if you don't have the knowledge, you're going nowhere. You're just going to squander that money. So it's more, wealth creation is a lot more complex than, it's on that journey. Definitely, I agree in terms of stopping, curtailing corruption. Yeah. So let me put it that way. Yes, all I'm just saying is that that's not the only thing that leads to creation of wealth. Okay. That conclusion is incorrect. And because it's incorrect, a lot of people are not doing what they need to be doing because they assume that that's the only derailer or that's the only thing stopping them from going after what they desire. It's almost like if you paint your house red and it looks good, then there will be food on your table. Like, it's good to, I mean, if you clean your yard and you clean, that's good. Nobody's saying it's not good. But does that connect to going out there, pursuing trade and investment opportunities, going out there to kill the ram and then bringing it home? Yes, it does affect how people are able to do that. I'm just trying to say, I guess, as I move on from that conversation, is let's get more curious. Let's get more curious. Let's not buy into narratives that is not advancing the goals and missions that people have. It's easy for people to create propaganda, and that's why I don't even mention that word. I don't talk about it because once it corrupts the conversation. Corruption corrupts the dialogue itself, because all of a sudden people's mind just goes, this is the enemy. It is an enemy, right? But guess what? The biggest enemy is actually lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge, lack of awareness is the biggest thing that more people need to focus on. I would rather you put all your investments to go and study what Singapore has done, what India has done, what China has done, because corruption is not something that has been fully eliminated in this region of the world, but yet they are advancing. So I'm not for it. You clearly know. Hopefully, people can, hopefully, intelligent people can, you know, pick out what I'm saying now in terms of the deductions I'm making. It's a complex conversation that I would rather say put your energy behind knowledge, information, because the information that you do not have does more harm to you in the decision you're making than anything else. That's what I have found. Lack of knowledge, lack of information, lack of capacity building is the biggest issue right here. People don't want to know. People don't want to invest in knowing. I say, oh, come to my training masterclass. We don't want to be bothered. Tony, just give us, just show us when you're ready. No, life doesn't work that way. Join the trade network platform and start networking with people. No, we don't want to do that. Okay. Come to Trade with Africa Summit. No. Good luck with that. That looks really good. Toyin, you're doing a fantastic job. Oh, we clap for you. We'll clap for you from here. You get into the trenches and do the work. Okay. Like I was telling someone today, the trade network and the platforms I've built, I did not have to build it. I do not have to build it because I can do my thing. I'm doing my own thing privately. But the transformation that we need, the heavy lifting that is needed, requires a mobilization of people behind this work. Like Tony's work privately and my skincare and my stuff and the things I do, we need to amplify. So that's why the platforms and the network, it's not for me, it's for you. So if you don't show up, whose loss is it? It's not mine, because I already have those networks. I already have those networks. There's things we already do privately. They already respond to me privately. I don't have to ask them to show up publicly to come and share knowledge with you. I don't have to. But that's what's needed, because the things that I know, the things that I've seen, I'm finding that the community is, it doesn't, that knowledge base doesn't even exist. And that's why people are not moving in the direction. They talk about wealth, but the path to wealth is knowledge, right? It's knowledge, it's networking, it's linking harm with people. I see people going off to do their own thing in one corner and saying, oh, that supply chain. Somebody has to master agriculture. Somebody has to master logistics, distribution, warehousing. Somebody has to master, branding, marketing. And you all have to connect with one another. If you don't connect with one another, nothing is moving. To move a product from point A to point B must go through mature regions. My platform is linking people together, linking resources together. So when you plug into my event or my platform, you now can access resources that you cannot. That's the whole thing why I do what I do. It's on your behalf. Obviously, I'm making a business out of it because there's a need for it. That's the gap. And multilaterals are not solving this. They're just, they're doing what they can do. But at the end of the day, in the private sector, linking harm to harm with people that you can support, you can provide services to, and people that can provide services to you. And this whole game ain't free. Now, when you talk about corruption, the biggest corruption that I've seen on the Africa is the corruption of the mind, making people on the continent free that think that the transformation and wealth creation is a free exercise. And it's been, should I say, bastardized with this old dependency on foreign aid and thinking foreign aid. Foreign aid has its place, trust me, and I engage in that space heavily. But if you want to build your entire economy on what's coming on in that dimension, you're going nowhere. And that's what we see. So the biggest corruption that I see is mindset. Thinking, thinking that somebody out there is going to do the work you have to do for you, thinking that you're going to wake up to the next day and all of a sudden everything you need is arriving at your doorstep. No, sir, no, ma'am. The world doesn't work that way. You have to assert yourself. You have to show up to the place. You have to show up prepared. So even on my platform, that's why I coach people. I can give you access, I can put you in front of the right person, but I've seen people abuse or misuse or not leverage that opportunity because they didn't prepare. Their pitch is not right. I'm like we have some exporters that showed up and she was like, oh, this. And then immediately on the platform, people were like, oh, we want to buy. The way she interacted, people just gave up on her. They walked away because the world is not ready for all that stuff. You have to get your game right. What are you looking for? Who are you? What can you offer people? What are you looking for? Clean. Just put that out there. When you join our platform, you put that out there, you see people come and say, wow, I want to engage. I want to, because that's the concentration. That's what we're doing. But versus you're just putting things out there. You don't really know who's seeing it. So anyway, those are the reasons why I do what I do on your behalf as well. So, you know, Georgina, how are you? The other thing that I'm also seeing, you remember I talked about penthouse people, middle floor people, grassroots, particularly at the grassroots. Many people are hearing what I'm saying and saying, Toyin, where do we start from? I mean, in fact, after this, I'm going to do an Instagram live because I have two questions. I put a note out there and said yesterday and said, if you have any questions, drop it. So I'm going to go on Instagram live to answer those two questions. One of it, which is question we get all the time, to say, how do I start? We've heard you. How do I get engaged? And what I respond is, it's a journey. Again, part of the misconceptions people have around wealth creation, they think it's overnight. Like you're going to start a business now, and then 6 months later. And that's why we all get frustrated, myself included. It's like you're going after this thing, you're doing everything you need to do, but it's not that will. That's why I said it's a scientific experiment. you know the other day, there's a new series movie TV show series that my husband just started, and it's set in the times of the Ford, no Tesla, Tesla and all of those things, in terms of what they had to do to create direct current and alternating current, and the mind with which they were so laser focused on cracking the code. That's what I mean. Wealth creation is something like that. You have to be relentless. It's science. You have to try this, try that, try that. And when you find the winning source, then we talk about scaling, which is another topic we can talk about, right? Scaling it, right? So a lot of times people think, oh, when we show up to the platform and we say ABC, then tomorrow morning we'll be like balling. Oh, Toyin. Yes, but if you're ready, so that's the other thing. If you're ready, you've done all the work. One connection, one interaction, one knowledge can spark for you. But guess what? It's because you've done the work, right? It's because you've done the work. So anyway, so this is a really fascinating topic to me. Privately, I teach classes on business development, helping people streamline their businesses, on trade and investment facilitation. Because when people come, they're like, I want this, I want that. I'm like, you need to prepare. You need to prepare. The other thing is in terms of market entry strategy. People say, oh, Tony, we've heard you. Oh, wow, we like what you're saying. We're ready to go to Africa. I'm like, let's develop, let's now that you're ready, let's spend time to create a winning strategy for you, right? Let me design your market entry strategy for your sector. Because based on your sector and based on what it is you're trying to accomplish, what I would recommend, the country or region I would recommend will look different. That's one. How you engage will look different. To say, do you want local partnerships or do you want to develop distributorship? There are several decision points you have to make. And then when you have that robust strategy and you know why you're doing what you're doing and the return you're going after, then we can execute on it. We can do your B2B, B2G matchmaking. We can connect you. But before we start doing that type of connection, let's spend time to develop a strategy. And that's my approach. And I know many people are not ready for that. So that's what I wanted to share today. There's a whole lot more. I know I went all over the place, but that's the way my mind thinks. Like what drives this work is that depth of understanding and streamlining it. And now we operate, in the four pillars. If you want to know the four pillars, go to go. There are four pillars that we operate on. That one of it is events, obviously. So that's it. Any questions before I wrap this up? and say see you next week. That's it. But eh, reach out privately if you have more questions. But for me, it's game on. It's realizing that if this is a path you're trying to work on, either as individuals or businesses or as a policymaker, we're here to support you. The whole reason we built this platform is to help accelerate the path you're trying to go. And I tell people that want to engage, like, this is, you have to listen to the aspirations of Africans and the rest of the world. And I listen. That's the first thing I try to do before I even offer solutions, is for me to understand what your aspirations are, and then to see how what we have, the platforms we have and the reach we have and our network and capacity, how we can leverage that to move you forward faster. That's really the essence of the work I do. Okay, no more questions. DM. I know people like to private message as well. Please send that. It's a lot faster. You probably hear from me faster if you were to send an email out. I'm looking at right. That's the fastest way, because my my don't get clogged in my DM. There's a lot of backlog, right? And I apologize for that. No excuses. But if you really want to get to me quicker and you want quicker response, I always feel like that's, email info at toyinmesiri.com. And do check out my personal website, toyinmesiri, www.toyinmesiri.com. I've been working on streamlining that, because I recognize that sometimes people come to me for Africa, sometimes it's not for Africa. I also do life coaching and all of those things. So I've tried to streamline how I message the different things that I do. I mean different things to different people. I recognize that. And from a personal branding standpoint, that's the work on that I'm going through right now, to help people understand that, okay, when it comes to international trade, I support that with my platforms and all of that. But I also provide business coaching to help people accelerate. Like, the knowledge I've used to build a globally relevant brand is something I now offer other people as well. Like, I now have, because the last couple of years I've been building my own thing, so I didn't have the capacity or even interest to help other people. But now that we have platforms, things are fully baked. It's stable, it's stabilized, right? We've brought it to the world, we have a place in the world. Now we're looking at our community and realizing that, wow, not everybody has, no, not everybody's able to pull that off, but I can offer like an hour of my time. And that's one of the things I do. Like, on my website, if you want to spend 1 hour for me to look at your business, bring you wealth of knowledge, that's something I now have. Like, I can do that, paid service, right? And the best practice, I would say, if you're interested in doing that, this is the best practice I've seen to maximize that hour. Send me your list of questions ahead after you've purchased that 1 hour. That's what's best practice. What people that have taken the maximum benefit from my hour is, send me 8, 10, whatever questions you have around your business. Send it ahead. That way I can prepare. That way, when we start that hour, it's boom, boom, boom. I go down your list. That's something I offer. The other thing I offer is a more lengthy 6 to 8 weeks or more support. And that's around coaching, not just answering questions, but actually guiding you, right? Actually guiding and showing up for you every week, because I'm more invested in seeing you succeed for that. So we have all those programs beyond just Africa. This is something that I'm finding out that people are like, okay, Tori, I'm not ready to engage with Africa, but I have this business, I have this bakery, I have this business here. Is there something you can do for me? I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, international is going international is just the next level for a local business, right? So anyway, so that's something I do. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you out there, and God bless you all. Bye.